Now then, here we go for another one. Listen, you're probably thinking, what's this? That's not how he normally opens a podcast. And you would be right. And it's basically because I've annoyed myself. I was editing some of my podcasts, and it's quite like a big job to go through some stuff. And I realized that ever since we're on episode like 46, 47, something like that now. And I realized that every single podcast, except for the first one, obviously, I've said the same thing. And it when you've heard it over and over again in your head enough times, it really annoyed me. And then I started thinking, actually, a lot of these listeners probably listen to more than one podcast in a row, and they probably hear this message over and over again, and that is really annoying. Like, I found it annoying for me. So now you're probably going to listen to other podcasts. I'm probably going to say it again. I'm going to say it's welcome back to the Body Composition Coach podcast. I can't say it out loud, but that's what it is. You're going to hear that in on like future episodes or past episodes. You go, oh yeah, it's actually a bit annoying. So I apologize anyway. I'll try not to say it that much. But anyway, welcome back. That's my little rant. I'm trying to make today's episode a little bit of a shorter one for you, because it's more. I would call it coffee chats with Jono. It's actually a bit late for coffee. It's like 4:45, but you get the gist. It's not going to be a full length podcast because it's basically, this podcast is just built off some conversations I've had recently, and they've really frustrated me, and I want to just kind of get this into a podcast. So when that conversation comes up again, I'm going to throw this podcast at you and be like, yeah, listen to this. Like, listen, these are my thoughts on this. If you have anything to add, let me know. If you have a response to this, let me know, rather than typing out this message over and over again. But before I do all of that, you know the drill by now. If you listen to this podcast, if you're enjoying it, if it's helping you, if you find it useful, leave me a comment. Let me know. Let me know if you agree with me or disagree with me on this. It's cool to disagree. Like, that's healthy debate. Give me a 5-star review. Always useful. If we're going to get this podcast out to more people, which I believe it should go to more people, if you're listening to this, I hope you believe that too. Otherwise, like, what are you doing here? Give me a 5-star rating. It's literally one click, and it helps this podcast reach thousands more people. Thousands. And we can have an impact, right? So you're probably thinking, what are these conversations then? Let me try and phrase it for you. It's the whole, I don't like to obsess over numbers, or don't weigh myself because I don't like to obsess over numbers. Or I don't use scales, get obsessed with numbers. Right. Let me be straight from the start. I have a problem with that. I do have a problem with that. And I get it. I do get it. So don't jump down my throat and don't have a go at me yet. Let me explain my piece. But I do have a problem with it. And I don't think it solves your problem. And I do actually think it makes your problem worse. I'm going to explain to you why. And I get it doesn't come from like a laziness, or, well, it doesn't come from any other place other than trying to protect yourself, right? It's self-protection. Sometimes, and hopefully you know enough about me by now to realize that sometimes we don't need to protect ourselves. We actually just need to deal with the truth and face up to it. And I think this is part of it, but that's another subject. I've talked about that before. So I don't think it's laziness. I do think it's self-protection. And just to be clear, this is targeted to the person who actually has done the work, right? Because I'm not going to patronize anyone here when I'm talking about the scales and scales not moving, or numbers not being our best friend and not enjoying using numbers. I'm talking about people who have actually put the effort in, right? Because it's very easy to say, oh no, don't use the scales, not looking at them, got nothing to do with that, and then you're just not doing the work, right? Because you can insert phrase there, but you're burying your head in the sand, right? If you're not actually doing the work and then you're blaming the scales. But I'm not talking to that person. I'm talking to the person who is actually doing the work, who is actually training quite a lot, who is actually doing steps, who is actually watching their nutrition and actually trying hard. I'm talking to you because you're not helping yourself by avoiding the numbers in general. Now, I also understand that the scale isn't everything, and we'll go over that in a second. But let me just give you an analogy. Let's say you were skint, right? Let's say you're banking, you look at your bank account and you're looking at how far payday was, and you're thinking those two things don't add up. That number there doesn't add up to the amount of days I've got left till payday and the amount of things I've got on. What am I going to do, right? I'll tell you what you don't do. Well, some people do, and they end up in a lot of debt. But most of you don't just close your eyes and pretend it's not happening. right? You don't suddenly like snip your bank card in half, delete the online banking app off your phone, and then go, well, if I can't see it, doesn't matter. Some of you are probably screaming at the phone now. Like, well, I do that. I just ignore it. Best to just ignore it. If I don't know about it, it can't hurt me. Yeah, that's all well and good until the debt collectors come around, right? You get the picture though. Ultimately, if your bank account's running low, you don't just close your eyes and ignore it. So, what do you do? Well, you use it as feedback, right? The feedback is you've spent too much money. You haven't saved enough money. You probably need to do that, right? That's your feedback. So why with the scales, or insert any other way of measuring fat loss progress, do we do anything different? And just again, to be clear, I am talking mainly fat loss here because that is usually the journey people are on if it comes down to like numbers and scales and that kind of thing, and avoiding that sort of stuff. So yeah, you don't use it as well, you probably do use it as negative feedback, but you use it as feedback, right? It's telling you, I need to pull back over the next few days. I need to do something different over the next couple of weeks. I might need to pick up a couple of extra shifts to make sure that I'm like, there's enough in the bank to pay for my phone bill or whatever it might be, right? Sometimes that's the case for some of us. So why do we treat the scales any different? And it doesn't necessarily need to just be the scales, but I see it so many times where we don't like what we see on the scale, so we ignore it. That is absolute sacrilege. It's suicide from a progress point of view. Honestly, it's suicide from a progress point of view, because you are getting this feedback from a piece of equipment. It's feeding back to you, and it's saying, Jono, you've not lost any weight. And you're saying, I'm going to close my eyes. Don't look. I'm not going to look at it. I'm going to close my eyes. And I get it, right? I know the argument, but scales aren't accurate. You're completely correct. You are completely correct. Scales are not that accurate. But scales form part of a bigger picture. Do I think you should take the scale number, and if this is a message you're taking from me right now, let me correct it. Do I think the scale number should dictate success? Far from it. Miles off it. You cannot lose any weight and have lost loads of body fat and built loads of muscle and look completely different from barely losing any weight. I've got clients in a minute who have shifted maybe a kilo or so, and they have completely transformed, look completely different people, right? So I'm not saying, this is to be clear, I'm not saying you should use the scales as the be all and end all. But what I am saying is, if you're completely avoiding it, you are closing your eyes to the feedback that is actually going to help you move forwards. So if I'm not saying that the scale is the be all and end all, what am I kind of pointing you towards? I'm telling you to use the scales as part of like a dashboard. This is the best way I can explain it, right? Because when I do my check-ins for clients, and a lot of my clients will be listening to this podcast and they'll back me up here. When I do my check-ins for clients, they will never see me just go to one data point and be like, oh, this is good. Never. I've never done that, right? What they'll see me do, and if you're one of my clients, leave it in the comments because you'll back me up. What they will see me do is go to their weight, go to their measurements, go to their photos, go to their training performance, go to all these different things. If they do in-body scans, that kind of thing, 5, 6, 7 different metrics, and be like, this is what this says, 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 this is what this says. And as an overall picture, this is what progress looks like. But I will always, not always is probably strong, 99.9% of the time I will use weight as part of that picture. Doesn't necessarily mean weight will always go down, but it is still feedback for us as to the progress we are making. And the problem I have, going back to what I said at the very start, the problem that I have with people who say, oh, no, I don't use scales, don't have a good relationship with scales, don't like numbers, don't like obsessing over numbers. What you're actually saying is the scales are telling me something that I don't like, so I'm going to turn a blind eye to it and I'm going to bury my head in the sand. It is not healthy and is not going to help you fix the problem. And again, to remind you, I'm not saying the scales actually are correct and you should only use the scales. I'm saying if they're not giving you the feedback you want, you need to build it into a dashboard. It needs to be one light on a large dashboard, measurements, photos, how your clothes are fitting, uh, gym performance, scales, in-body scans. Like honestly, there's so many different things that you can kind of mesh in here and mash together to create that dashboard. But like ignoring the data isn't going to fix your problem. And like in all seriousness, because I suppose like some of the stuff I've said here is a little bit tongue in cheek, right? But in all seriousness, because I do know this is a big problem for a lot of people, and it does cause them a lot of mental torment, and it does cause them a lot of frustration. And I know you're frustrated. I get that you're frustrated. I speak to people like you every single day who are beyond, like, beside themselves with frustration because they're doing everything right, or they feel like they're doing everything right. They're working really hard, and they're not seeing the progress that they think they deserve, right? But I want you to know that you're ignoring the feedback. The feedback is that clearly you're not doing everything right. Clearly there's something missing. You're not broken. You're not some, like, weird medical marvel. It's just feedback. And the feedback is, yeah, you're not losing weight. You're not, your total body mass is not getting lower. Your measurements aren't going down. Your photos aren't changing. Your dress size hasn't changed. It's all feedback. In the same way that if all of that stuff had changed, that would be good feedback too. That would be feedback for you. You're doing the right things. You need to keep moving forwards. But I just think turning a blind eye to numbers and just saying like, oh, I don't like obsessing over numbers and that kind of thing. I just think you're burying your head in the sand to feedback that would actually help you move forwards. And look, I think a phrase that I like to use a lot of the time, and a lot of the women that I work with, well, all of the women I work with are not new to training. They're not new to nutrition and tracking their calories and managing their protein and weight training and that kind of thing. But you don't know what you don't know, right? And ultimately, just because you think you're doing everything right and nothing's changing, the feedback from the numbers isn't positive, doesn't mean you are. And it's honestly such a hard pill to swallow. It's such a hard pill to swallow because I've been there with like my coaching business, for example. Like 5 years ago, I went from being like a fully booked gym floor personal trainer to working online, and I would have told you no one knows more about this industry than me. I'd been in it for 12 years at that point, been 17 years now. I would have said to you, no one knows more about this industry than me. It wasn't true. I didn't know what I didn't know. I wasn't great at marketing myself. I wasn't great at creating content. Like, look now, I'm doing a podcast. I'm nearly 50 episodes into a podcast. I've got thousands of viewers, right? If at the start, I'd have been nowhere near this. You don't know what you don't know. And just because you trained all these years and just because you know your difference between a protein, a calorie, and a fat, I think that the hardest pill to swallow, but the thing that will make you most successful in actually fixing the problem that you have is understanding that you don't know what you don't know. And if the feedback that you're getting from your data is that things aren't changing and things aren't moving, there is something missing. Genuinely, in 99.9% of cases, there is something missing. So burying your head in the sand from the data just prolongs your frustration. It just means that over the next 6 months, while you bury your head from the data, you're just going to end up more and more frustrated. So look, that's my view. Share yours with me. I would honestly be really intrigued to know if you've kind of done this before and buried your head in the sand and that kind of thing, and whether you've maybe come to your senses and switch back, or maybe you still bury your head in the sand. It'll be interesting to know. But I suppose my closing message would be that, look, the weight isn't everything. Like the scales, honestly, it's not everything. It can be very, very misleading. It can be a rubbish piece of data sometimes if we're talking simply about the scales. But if we understand how to use it, and just to add to that, I like to weigh daily. I think you get a much better, well-rounded information set and data set that you can pick an average from and understand it better. I should probably elaborate on that. Even though this was my closing message. What I mean by that is if you weigh every single day, you can take an average weight for the week. And then if you weigh every single day the next week, you can take an average weight for that week and you can compare the two, right? Whereas you might hit a low weight one week and a high weight the next week, but not realize that your average was actually, lower across the 2 weeks, and that's what really matters. Not that you hit like your weight's never going to go down linearly, right? It's not going to be a linear fashion, but averages are really important anyway. That's why I recommend weighing daily, but that's probably for another time now. I'm already closing my message, so let's not get into that. But anyway, my point is this: if you're doing everything right, if you're not moving forwards, if you're closing your eyes and burying your head in the sand from the data, you are missing out on really important feedback, which could help you move forwards.